Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 4, The Yoga of Renunciation of Action in Knowledge. Right knowledge makes every act a worship. The Blessed Lord declares that He, although of an unborn and imperishable nature, manifests Himself in every age when there is a decay of righteousness in order to establish righteousness and destroy wickedness. He also declares that if one can free himself from attachment, fear, anger, and absorb himself in Him, that is the Blessed Lord, the final goal is assured. Continuing on the topic of action, the Lord says, action is the insignia of life. It's not what you do in life that matters so much as how you do it. A person hardly praying or going to the temples but not having hatred and enmity towards others is a greater bhakta than the one who prays and visits all the temples but still nurtures hatred and enmity towards others. Every action can be done as an offering of worship to the divine. What a beautiful statement. Every action that you do can be done as an offering of worship to the divine. Play your part in life just like an actor on stage, giving your best shot. Remember that the real you, which is your divine principle, is not the limited person you think you are now. Try to constantly remind yourself of it and always try to attach yourself to the highest you, the real you. Actions of the enlightened are not binding because they are free from desires and expectations and attachments, and they are even-minded in success or failure. Hence, this will not create any vasanas or any binding. Throughout our life, as mentioned earlier, all our actions can be converted to become a yajna, a ritual sacrifice. Hence, there is really no need for anyone to say, I don't have time for prayer. I don't have time for making special offerings to God. No. All our actions, whatever we do, can be converted to become a ritual sacrifice. Right knowledge makes every act a yajna. The Lord uses the metaphor, the most familiar Vedic ritualism at that time, where oblations were offered into the fire to invoke the blessings of the deities. And accordingly, there is a description in this chapter of 12 yajnas. That is, yajna literally means materials are offered into a sacred fire. And then, not only are they consumed by the fire, but a great blessing accrues. Accordingly, the 12 yajnas are the yajna of action. That is, whatever becomes your activity, give the best of it. Use it as a means to the final goal of discovering yourself. Then you have the yajna of individualities. Here, nothing is done for a limited purpose, but for the purpose of everyone's welfare. Similarly, we have other yajnas like the yajna of perception, restraint, that is self-control, yajna of senses and vital airs, yajna of wealth, physical services, emotions and ideas, study and wisdom, pranayama, inner strength to outer activities, and the yajna of jnana, or knowledge. This yajna of knowledge is far superior to materialistic offerings or mere formalistic ritualism. In this yajna of knowledge, man renounces all his ignorance into the fire of knowledge kindled by him. This contains two main aspects. The first is the negation of the false, that is, the wrong notion that we are just this limited false mortal self. And the second assertion of knowledge, the assertion of the real nature of the self, that is our true divine self. And to acquire this, you should have the intellectual attitude of surrender, the mental aspect of inquiry, and the physical aspect of service. Body, mind, and intellect, BMI. It is this fire of knowledge that reduces the actions to ashes. That is, it removes the vasanas. This knowledge of reality, that is, the knowledge of our true eternal self, this alone will carry you from the shore of mortality to the shore of immortality and protect you from the shocks, agitations, and worries of the world to the harbor of peace and bliss. Now, what is the surest way of acquiring wisdom? Firstly, let's know the difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is found in books. But when this knowledge is lived practically in life, it becomes wisdom. This is the basic difference. Now, how do we acquire this wisdom? The first point is you start with the physical body by subduing and controlling the senses to the extent possible. Controlling the senses is not an easy affair. Neither does it mean self-denial, because when you deny something, when there is a self-denial, it will only be a repressed desire and will soon return. Self-control is when you actually fix a target and ensure that your actions are taking you towards it. So the first step is to start with the physical body, subduing and controlling the senses. The second, proceed to the mind with devotion, giving undivided attention to the path of self-development. And finally, to the intellect by developing Shraddha, that is, the ability to be consistent and dedicated intellectually. Again, we have body, mind, and intellect. The man who is thus full of faith, devotion, and has subdued the senses obtains this supreme knowledge. Conversely, he who has neither the knowledge of the self, if not a spiritual realization, at least a clear intellectual understanding, nor he has Shraddha, that is the intellectual readiness to grapple with and understand the scriptural declarations, or at the physical level, even if he is a doubting Thomas, doubting the self, this person will not find happiness anywhere. Our true blissful nature, our true self, is revealed only by our own self-effort. Thus ends the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, entitled The Yoga of Knowledge. Hari Om Tat Sat.